Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Trident Wargaming podcast. I'm joined tonight by William Kirk Bonko and and Ryan McLeod.
I'm finally allowed to leave my house after him.
We're here with you tonight to do actually kind of like an overdue recap episode on some events that we've been at least recently. So tonight we're going to be giving you a double feature. We'll be first covering the WCTC team tournament that we went to right at the end of October, about a month ago now. And then a little later on, we're going to cover the Nemesis GT that was just 2 weekends ago. Week and a half ago or so that Ryan and I were at. And just kind of give our thoughts, kind of give you a recap of how our events went, what we think of how things were at the events, and just kind of talk about all that stuff. But as usual, we're going to kick it off first with a little hobby catch-up. And we'll, I think, start with Bill. Just, Bill, why don't you give us a little insight on what you've been working on lately?
Well, the last week and a bit has been very prosperous. If you're keeping track on the socials, you will have seen the fruits of my labor. Dorn's Boar, aka the pig, as I'm calling it. It's my first of its kind. It's the Proteus Land Raider Redeemer variant. That's my scratch built Redeemer because I didn't want to have to buy a regular Raider anymore. Plus, they're pretty much sold out. The Bonkus. Yes. I was sitting on extra Proteus. I still have another one on sprue, but I really wanted to come up with something unique on the tabletop for my Betab army. I wanted the Executioners to ride in style. So I decided to create that monstrosity. And from the pictures, I don't have a measurement there, but it is almost as wide as it is long. And
I was going to say, it's cool. Pretty square.
Yeah, it looks pretty
pretty square.
Pretty
Actually, yeah. Go ahead, Ryan.
Put a little ruin on top, and you're just like, it's obscuring. Don't worry about it. It's a terrain feature.
It's moving terrain, yeah. Moving terrain.
A little bit.
So,
Bill and I talked a little bit this week about it because I told Bill I'm not actually a huge fan of the Proteus, the way it looks for Land Raider variants. But he showed me the side panels he was going to put on, and I'm like, oh, maybe, yeah. And now I actually, the way you did it, I actually kind of do like it. I think that the boxiness of it seems better with it being wider to me. It just looks more like I feel like it should look.
Yeah.
So,
It's
the Land Raider you deserve.
Yeah, it's honestly, it looks like a bunker on tracks, which is cool, right? Which is pretty sweet. Been doing that, and then just working a lot on Thulsa Cain and the rest of my Executioners force, trying to get it all kind of done up and ready for January when we kick things off here. So lots of building, lots of priming and getting things ready, but. That Proteus is definitely one of my favorite models. I took all the attention to detail, made it completely WYSIWYG to the data slate of what the Redeemer actually has. So I went all the way. I'm quite proud of the little chunky fuck. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, she is a good one. Ryan, what have you been up to?
If you haven't seen, I haven't played him much. Scott played him more often, but. The 40 hours 40k, I was doing my Dark Samurai up, and my printer has not stopped printing for the last 3 weeks while I finish up the rest of them. They're actually in another room, but I printed up 3 Dreadnoughts that are fully magnetized to go between Redemptor, Ballistus, Brutalis. Hellblaster's done. I changed up an Azrael that Scott gave me. I changed up his armor to match the rest of my army. I've done I think I might be making up new lieutenant models for GW. So if you see a model like this coming out, I made it first, GW. But Hellblasters, Eradicators, because seeing Bill's tank come out, I'm sure with Vanguard and my Eradicators hitting on 2s with AP 5, read my character rules for Badab, AP 6. I'm sure his Land Raider does not enjoy that. So it'll be interesting to see how my Eradicators do it. I was talking to Jordan, and we were discussing that he better strat reserve or something, keep it off the table. Maybe not even bring it, because it might be the first thing that dies every game.
Fucking balls.
But
I mean,
if that's how I win the game and that's it, and I kill his Land Raider and I pack up and leave, and he's wondering what's going on when he comes back from the bathroom, he'll know because the Land Raider will be the only thing dead, and it's a moral victory.
Moral victory, yeah. No doubt.
But no, I had to finish up my Chaos Knights army for Nemesis. Had to print and paint 6 Nurglings. Had to build my own blue scribe. I've never seen a blue scribe before. Never actually seen one in person, so I did my little variant.
Say, before, have you seen one now?
I've never seen one before. I've seen the GW sold out sign on their website, and that's the only time I've ever seen one.
Like the best website ever, right?
So, yeah, I can't even find that Ballistus on there. I was trying to find it for the base size.
I know.
But I don't think it exists.
No, not a separate.
Well, they don't do
the
that.
Ballistus might have been. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think the Ballistus might have been a fever dream, but it's not on the GW website that I can easily find.
Honestly, ever since I swapped over, I've gone exclusively to Wahapedia for base sizes, which is not like authoritative, but honestly, like they're pretty good for it. So
Yeah.
Because I can't find them either. It's like the one thing that I still went to the GW website for was base sizes, and now we can't do that. Ryan's dreadnoughts actually are like gorgeous. I know
Really
he's
cool.
shared. I think he shared a couple pictures of them. Can't remember if that was in the group chat or on Facebook there. But if you haven't shared them in some of the pages, you should, Ryan, because like honestly, like they look sweet. They're also kind of chunky boys.
They
I like them.
thick.
They are thick, yeah. But they actually remind me a lot of kind of the same sort of look as some of the smaller, chunkier, like BattleTech kind of walkers. I really like them. I think they look awesome, and they still got that kind of samurai aesthetic. Yeah, there you go. They kind of got that samurai aesthetic. I think they look amazing. So I'm thrilled to see them across the table. I'll also like them a lot more than getting beaten up by 6 Eradicators. So
I only have 12.
Sure, that many. For me, I've kind of been all over the place this last week or so. I was continuing to work on some Bad Up stuff too for my Marines, but there's been some random stuff that has just kind of happened to make me work a little bit on my Necrons this week, a little bit too. Which actually hasn't been much new work, but kind of digging through the models a bit, doing some repairs here and there, looking at what kind of needs a little bit of painting and what I kind of want to do for a next project or two. I have also commissioned Ryan to get me a new model printed off, and he's thankfully done that, so that's awesome, and that'll be kind of the next week or two of work, I'd imagine. And so that's kind of my future. 2 more weeks of school after this, and hopefully then I can hit the paint hard.
Yeah, I think it was Jordan. There's his bag of bits he wants.
Oh yeah, all right.
Nice.
Double-handed hammers and thunder hammers, and he wants. I found some nice Mark IV jump packs because he's doing his Death Company up like that. So, bunch of characters.
Yeah, his
Yeah.
Unga Bunga Lamentor list.
So
That'll be awesome.
I'm enabling the Bad Ab.
Yeah.
Good. We got a couple of printers on that, I think, right now. So that's awesome. All right. Well, we can kick it out of here, and we'll take a step back in time to cast yourselves as we're back to a little bit before Halloween. Bill and Ryan here, as well as Aiden, who was our 4th member. We're packing ourselves up on a Friday afternoon, trying to get our shit together as quick as possible so we could hit the road and fly ourselves over to Saskatoon for a weekend of Warhammer, where we played in the WCTC. That's the Western Canadian Team Championship GT. 5 games hosted out in Saskatoon for, what did we get to? 16 teams, I believe.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think we can say on the whole, we had an awesome weekend. Just like, we'll cover some details here, but just as a generalist sort of thing, we didn't have the best weather getting to Saskatoon, but we survived and it was fine. The the lodgings were fine for the, like, I don't know, 4 waking hours that we were in them. So that was fine. We had some good food. We had a great time at the honestly really nice event space. We got our 5 games in each and had a great time playing. We unfortunately did get stuck playing quite a few people that we already know. That's always my fear when I go traveling for events, is that, like, the one thing you really want is to play guys you don't know. Get some new faces, and we did, but we also played like 2 or 3 teams from Edmonton or Calgary in our 5 games, which is just bound to happen. At least it wasn't 5 for 5. But we did have a good time. We had a great time, and we'll kind of run down that recap a little bit for you here. So for starters, just to kick off, why don't you guys? We'll start with Bill. We'll each give a little rundown of what you brought to the event for an army.
I brought my Drukhari, and I do distinctly remember this event because I was painting literally up until the minute Ryan pulled up to my house to pick me up.
Oh yeah,
and
you found out what battle ready actually meant.
Yeah, I was stressing super hard. Like, I'm looking at like parade ready essentially, right? And I'm trying to get all my shit like done up, and I'm like, I'm doing the eyes, and I'm getting all the ammo pouches done, and I'm trying to highlight everything, and people are like, no, that's not battle ready. That's like fucking next level. Really? And then I'm like, what's battle ready? And get a picture, and I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Like, oh, okay, I feel way better about it now. I airbrushed the Talos to battle ready in like 5 minutes before Ryan showed up. I was feeling pretty good about that too.
You were pretty stressed. So.
I was stressing hard. I brought my Darklands Daddy list. So it was Archon, 3 units of Cowboy Warriors, each in boats. And my triple Scourge, triple Ravagers, double Kronos, and 1 Talos list. I also had Lilith, 5 racks, and a Venom. Had a lot of guns, a lot of mobility. I had some pretty decent games. I learned a shit ton though. It was my real big first, like, big boy event, rolling out with my Drukhari, and I learned a lot of stuff. Definitely need to be aggressive with the OC and scoring and pushing off objectives. Darklances do the work, but it's just, in return, you have to be able to follow up and take those objectives. I did get stuffed on a few primary games. There was a game I distinctly remember falling on the sword. I did it for the team, which I didn't get crumped. I never got beat up to a 0-20 game. I was able to hold my own at least to like a 18-2 or 16-4 or 15-5, even something like that. But I never got dumpstered completely, which was a feat in itself, which was nice.
Bill?
What are you going to say?
I was going to say, Bill, for those who are kind of wondering here, he kind of unfortunately got a shit hand in this one because he's just kind of coming back to Warhammer as of 10th edition, and he's I mean, you're pretty comfortable with the game now, I think. But the army that you have been playing just is Drukhari, who unfortunately were not in a spectacular spot going into the event. It was not a tactical choice. We weren't trying to galaxy brain this by bringing a Drukhari list, but it was, it is the thing where it's like you can try to force guys into rules, but we weren't really going with the idea of being the most competitive possible Trident team we could bring. We wanted to go and get we were hoping to win some games, and we did.
We didn't even bring Eldar.
Yeah, we didn't. It's crazy, right? It's true. But we did want to, get some good experience for some of the guys on the team who don't get to go to as many events. We wanted to enjoy a team event, which are like the best events to go to. You know, everybody wants to get into more of them, and hopefully we'll see more of them coming up. And it is, you know, what Bill was most comfortable with. So we felt a little bad because, like, you know, the reality is you are fighting uphill with Drukhari. And I know that it was also kind of your first GT in a little while, Bill. But you did handle things very well. You had a couple of games that actually were pretty decent. And, you know, when you had adversity, you were you were pretty good about it, which we do appreciate. And yeah, honestly, Drukhari do still have some play. It's not like they're a dead army. It's just sometimes it can be a little tough, obviously, especially when there's a matchmaking mechanic at play.
I think it was the second day. Might have been round 4 or 5, and we're like, "Okay, Bill, you need 6 points, and we win this round." And we're like, "Oh no, Bill's down 19-1."
It was bad, yeah.
It was not going to go well. And then he's like, "Okay, boys, I lost 12-8," and we're like, "Bill, you had 1 turn left. How'd you score 40 points?" We're like, what is happening?
It was crazy.
Yeah, you actually pulled that one out.
Yeah, that last game was wild. I was able to really capitalize, and I scored like all my secondaries. I was able to score the primary, and it was all kind of like Hail Mary style, and ended up working out, which was nice. It was good. We ended up coming in 5th overall, which still solid showing.
And,
I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, we finished 5th out of 16. I think we were the top team from Edmonton. And really, like I said, we had one round where things were real close. And if we had managed to pull that guy out, you know, we would have finished probably 3rd-ish, maybe even 2nd. I don't quite remember the scores very well. But it's not like we didn't have a great time and do fairly well. And actually, to be honest with you, with what we brought to the event and considering our preparedness going in, I was super happy with our results. But really, like I said, that wasn't really our goal. I mean, we wanted to win some games, but more than anything, we just wanted to get some experience and have a good time, and we did.
Yeah.
Ryan, why don't you run us down what you brought? Because I know that you were on a more competitive army. You also were a little bit torn about what to bring.
Well, I brought Votan. It was 20 Terminators. I brought 12 Thunderkin, which I don't think I think it might be too much now. Used to be before it was interesting. Now I think it might be a little too much. But it was there for I don't think any of our armies really had anything to deal with it. The random list we saw, like Sean's 260 Gaunts or whatever. I was like, well, Bill's Dark Lances can't kill enough, and I don't think anyone had enough. So I was like, I'm going to bring some Horde clearing too. But it's just lucky that they are also very good into vehicles. But it seemed like everyone else had the same idea, because the other 5 Votan lists were 20 Terminators, probably 4 to 6 Sagittars for the scout move bikes. I may have been the only one to run 2 6-man groups, but I wasn't really looking. I don't even know if we even played another team with a Votan team in it, so I don't think anyone played Votan, which I was kind of surprised about with the amount that were actually there. I think it was 4 or 5 Votan players.
Yeah,
but
something like that.
We never got paired into one at all.
Actually, I got my thing. There was 3 other Votan players, not including you.
Yeah, so it's still quite a bit, but I was surprised nobody played. All my games went fairly well. There was a couple. I remember playing one Chaos Knight guy, and he's brought the 13 War Dogs, and then after the game, he opened up his box to put his models away, and he went, "Shit, there's still one in the box." And I was like,
yeah.
"Huh."
Yeah,
I was like, "Oh yeah." I guess we didn't count how many models you put on the table. That's unfortunate. He's like, "That sucks. One more might have instead of the draw might have got the win for him." But I was just like, "That's unfortunate." But it's one of those.
Yeah, well,
sometimes you have too many models. Sometimes you don't have enough.
Well, I know you. Well, I know that you were torn on maybe bringing Chaos Knights yourself, and you've mostly swapped over to Chaos Knights since. I think.
Sorry, keep going.
I was gonna say the both armies are in like a phenomenally better place than they were, say, August or July of this year. They both just absolutely rocketed up, just in meta play, but also like functionally, I think too. Votann were not just struggling, but really like their mechanics just were very, very disappointing during the summer. And Chaos Knights were just looming in the shadow of everything that Imperial Knights could do. But of course, they both have turned right around since the data slate, which is awesome. And you're seeing them getting used in tournament play a lot more. And I know you had been on your Leagues of Votann kick for a little bit before this. But then at the end, like this was really right at the tail end of where you wanted to be playing Votann, and you were kind of leaning into your knights a bit.
Yeah, that's I don't know if I was happy that I brought Votann for it. I don't think if I would have known, like I think they're doing this every year or as close to it as possible. Now that I have a better idea of what the terrain for a WTC event actually looks like. Because a lot of it, even I was playing, I think I played on the light terrain table more often, which just means it's shorter terrain. Yeah. But it's all still obscuring. It's still closed windows. It just doesn't have the 8-foot tall buildings that are fully enclosed that a knight could hide perfectly behind. But then again, there's still limited lines of sight, which I was very surprised about. So I was like, oh, a lot of the shooting. I was fortunate and didn't have to play in Eldar, but a lot of it you could just phantasm away, hide. But that was more surprising for me, where I thought maybe a melee army might have strived better in it, just because there was a lot of spots to sit and wait for the next round. So it might change into it, which kind of leading later on is what made me decide my army for Nemesis was based on the players pack. But
yeah, the train at the WCTC, say it 10 times fast, was spectacular. Literally every table had, I think it was 8 L's, fairly large L's on it.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. I mean, it's probably, some people think it's too much terrain. They were using the ETC style terrain, which again, I am a fan of. Or sorry, WTC style.
I am
a fan of. But yeah, it's like for a lot of folks, and I understand why, because like it is quite dense. It puts a lot of stuff down. It does have prearranged setups, which again can sometimes catch people off guard because they are different from the GW ones for sure. I actually don't think that it's more terrain than GW setups anymore, because the GW setups are very dense now, but like the layouts and exactly what you use, because WTC is almost exclusively just putting big L's up, whereas GW, you've got a lot of pieces that are functionally similar in most cases, but not quite in others, especially when it comes, as you mentioned, Ryan, to towering models, and also can be a little bit more shooting friendly when it comes to units that are actually in pieces. Some people find if you're running really shooty lists that it's not the best, but if you have mobility, if you have melee, and if you have more short range gunline armies, like I think it's awesome, and I love to play on tables like that. So,
well, that was I guess that's why you see the meta change such differently between what we're playing here, even like seeing the Art of War guys talk about it, and then now actually seeing the terrain, and you're like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense that the meta is going to be here a lot more shooting because the sight lines are bigger. There's more, it feels like more open spaces in the GW layout for it, whereas opposed to that one, I think just having the taller ruins made it feel like a tighter area and it was more compact. So it makes sense that things are more melee focused or like close up.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'd love to play on it more. So we'll kind of see how that evolves in the future here. For the event, we do, like I said, have 2 more teammates. Aiden's not with us tonight, but he brought Thousand Suns, who were, I think, an excellent pick for that event. He and I had talked a lot about playing either Necrons or Thousand Suns going in. And like we had thought like a good bit about Necrons. There were a few people there who ran Necrons, some of them reasonably successfully, because it is Necrons are a list that you can run in. You can pretty much count on not losing hard. You can win some games. You probably don't win very hard, but you also it's almost impossible to lose hard with a decent Necron player and a decent list. That's just the way that they operate. And he had played his Necrons quite a bit in the summer. They had struggled a little bit since the database as a faction, and I was really advocating for him to play the Thousand Suns because they, of course, had come up a lot. And I thought that, in a lot of ways, Thousand Suns are very similar to Necrons in how they operate on a team. They like a lot of the same matchups. But the thing about Thousand Suns is, whilst they lose a little bit, I think, on their reliability, they occasionally can run into a bad matchup. They generally still hold up pretty well, and they also gain the ability to just absolutely blow some matchups wide open, which Necrons kind of lack, or at least did in October. We'll see how things go once the Codex drops. So I was able to talk him into trying out the Thousand Suns, and I think he had a blast with them. He certainly had one or two rounds where he had just spectacular, huge scores. I know once or twice he saved our bacon with those scores too. So he had a lot of fun, and I played Marines. I played with a lot of, as Ryan kind of mentioned earlier, a lot of Ryan's Marines, actually. I had been toying around with a Vanguard detachment of Dark Angels that, I kind of got, I'd say 4 or 5 games in before we went. And it was basically just centered on a big infiltrating Terminator brick, some Hellblasters with Azrael, lots of Phobos units, things like that. I did not run the Centurion brick. I know a lot of people do like running that with Vanguard, which I actually think is a great idea. It was just not something that I was making my list work around, and it kind of gave us kind of one of those mid-range kind of brawly kind of lists to throw into some armies that I knew basically none of our armies wanted to go up against. Bill certainly didn't. Leagues of Votann and Thousand Suns both can kind of brawl, but they prefer to keep you at arm's reach. So that was kind of the dynamic we were aiming for there. And I had an excellent weekend. They were a lot of fun. Vanguard, as I think we've got the Space Marine Codex review coming out right away, or will have already been out by the time you guys hear this.
Yep.
I think it's a spectacular detachment, and it's a lot of fun, and it seems like a lot of other people are definitely enjoying it right now too.
That's what I'm building for.
Yeah, I think it's, especially if you do like big scary units, or you've got the ability to put some of those in your army. I think it's the detachment to enable the greatest abuse of that, and it also shores up a lot of things that Marines aren't really good at doing. So we had a lot of fun with that. I think at the end what did we do? We won 3 rounds. We lost 1 round, or we lost 2 rounds.
Yeah.
One of which was quite close, and the other one less so. So we had a pretty good time, all things considered. The venue was spectacular. That space there is awesome. It's on the top floor of feels like a historic building, I think, that's in Saskatoon there.
Yeah.
But it's gorgeous. The space, we had 16 teams. There's 64 players in there, and nobody was pressed for space. There was lots of space around each table. The pods were well separated so that you could, have 4 tables for you and your opponents to yourselves. There was lots of room to move around and leave stuff, where you needed to, as well as, have some space away from the noise and things like that. Food was spectacular. I think Bill ate 17 sandwiches the one day. And
he had pocket sandwiches he had sandwiches for Saturday at lunch, eating them Sunday on the road trip.
I think he made himself sick.
Like, if you ever
heard
Friends, the moist maker, that was his entire sandwich. There was not one slice of bread.
Oh,
that
God.
pulled pork was there Sunday.
Saturday,
that was the pulled pork, right?
Saturday, I rocked out pulled pork sandwiches, and I think I ended up having 3. They were super good and rich, and I paid for it because my body was not ready, and it did not like that. Yeah. So it was pretty light on day 2. I stuck to the fruit bowl. And
fruit salad.
Yeah, fruit salad and bagged rind to stop at a Timmy's on the way out so I could sip some soup. Soup on the Yeah, he didn't like that, but he did stop, which was nice. And kind of just to echo Scott's point, like in terms of value, like the event, I thought it was excellent. It was a lot of fun. Had awesome swag. You got lunches both days. Nice spot. There was tons of like treats and water and snacks and all sorts of stuff. If you wanted to just rock out and get drunk on granola bars and
bubbly. I might have drank
a
case of bubbly over the weekend.
Jesus, just stayed hydrated. It was
there was no shortage of that. That's for sure. Yeah.
No, that was good.
I think that's an excellent point, Bill. Actually, that you bring up, because like honestly, for any event, it is fair to ask, what's your overhead on the price point? What do you get? And this for value was spectacular. Yeah. I think the way it kind of shook out, like you signed up as a team, but if you signed up especially before a certain deadline, it worked out to about $100 a player to play for the weekend. Considering what you got for that, most GTs are going to set you at like $60 at least. I would do it every day of the week for sure. The food was spectacular. The swag bag was immense. You got a ton of stuff in there. Prize support was excellent. There was tons and tons of stuff for not just for teams who were winning or finishing high, but lots of raffle prizes as well. The terrain was excellent. The venue was excellent. And like as we brought up, there was free drinks and coffee and snacks available at all times. There was never any shortage. So like really what you got for the dollar was spectacular. Just an amazing event, all things put together. So this is where it gets a little trickier. I guess one thing we should really throw out is not only that we loved it, but give some love to the organizers. So the TOs were Tyler Gatehouse and Rhett Tremblay. Now, the exact breakdown of everyone who contributed, I'm going to mess up here, I know, because there were a lot of people who did, I believe. But I know a lot of these guys who were involved are with the Prairie Fire Boys. There's a whole bunch of Northern Front guys involved too, I think. I'm not exactly sure. I kind of talked around a little bit, but I didn't 100% get a clear response on exactly if there was a specific team that was 100% kind of like the go-to guys for making this event run. But I do know for sure that it was Rhett Tremblay and Tyler Gatehouse who were being heroic TOs. It's very hard to TO 64 players in a team format with just two TOs, and they were doing an amazing job all weekend. And they were the primary organizers. They pretty much handled everything all weekend, and I assume a great deal of what went on behind the scenes leading up to, although I know that Riley, Rhett's brother, and Zach Hansen and Nathan were all, Nathan Skrazuti, were all deeply involved as well. And there was lots of other guys, I think, who came in and were offering, assistance in one way or another, and also some awesome prize support, things like that. So this was very much, from what I gathered, a team effort to put it together, but there are a couple guys worth mentioning there for the effort that they put in to make this possible for everybody.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I would say they aced it. So absolutely would love to go again next year. I think we've talked about several times, team tournaments are super fun. More and more people want to do them because more and more people are literally going to their first ones the last year or two and being like, wow, this is amazingly cool. I know that it's something that we're looking to do maybe next year or shortly thereafter. So it's something that I would recommend to everybody. I know that it's not even just the team event itself. It's also the fun you have just with a couple buddies, whether you're road tripping or you're here at home, just being able to enjoy the camaraderie, as I know we did, both in the car on the way back and the way there, popping out the grape juice and having some juice boxes in the car and just letting it get wild.
Yeah, it did get wild. You'd expect a 5-hour trip to kind of take a while, but it seemed fairly quick, actually, even with Ryan's driving. And
well, that's because you slept half of it
on the way home. But
the classic dad answer of, he fell asleep. He's like, no, I'm
fine.
just resting my
Just
eyes.
resting my eyes.
Just resting my eyes over here. It's like,
I was wasted
Bill, it's
day
been
2
30
for
minutes.
sure.
Bill,
but-
it's been 30 minutes. You haven't moved.
I'm just very still. On the way out,
Yeah,
it was a lot of
it's,
fun. It was a lot of fun. We had a good laugh. There was talking about, where coffee's derived from. We were talking about our lodgings, and we started having these grape juice boxes, which my wife packed a little like to go goodie bag. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know what was in those grape juice boxes, but the whole conversation just turned and it went downhill from there. Lots of laughs. Then we hit, hyperspace where it was like just straight snow as we're driving into it. And all you could see was just a little bit of the taillights of like these tractor trailers. And I was just like, follow those tractor trailer lights. And if it goes sideways, just drive the fuck away from where he went. And it was like, oh, okay. As we're kind of just driving, it was pretty wild on the way out. But I had a really good time.
For a bit, it was pretty ugly there.
Yeah, it was.
We had a great time. And like, honestly, if you're going anywhere for an event or for a weekend or something with your buddies, you're going to have a great time. And that's half the fun of these events. But we need to have, people putting on these events to enable that. And it's good not just to have it, but also to just do a spectacular job like they did with the WCTC. I know we had a blast. And honestly, look forward to doing it again another time. I know we went down to Calgary last summer as well, just 3 of us, and we had a blast there too. It really is like one of the best things you can do with your tabletop gaming buddies. Yeah. So highly recommend. And hopefully, like I said, we'll have more of that content for you in the future. And honestly, 10th edition 40k is also evolving and getting better and better as books and stuff come out. So I'd imagine that will also just, naturally improve the the state of the game as well for everybody. So
for sure.
But yeah, we can roll off there on our WCTC recap and switch gears to something a little bit more recent, the Nemesis GT that Ryan and myself and another Trident member, Scott Fox, who couldn't join us tonight, all went to just, like I said, about 10 days ago. Again, much more local. So thankfully we didn't have to do the wonderful drive to Saskatoon. As much as fun as we had, anybody who's done it knows that drive, any kind of Alberta to Saskatchewan or vice versa drive is not exactly the most interesting drive. But we were heading down actually to the new Gamers Den location. Sean, I think he was saying that they just got in there like a couple of days before this event.
They were building around us.
Yeah, you could see that like the place had mostly had the demo that needed to be done was mostly done, I think. But they didn't even have their shelves up yet, but it's, to be honest with you, an amazing space, and I absolutely 100% understand why he wanted to do it there, because it is genuinely a great space to set up 16 tables and host a tournament. And he was still able to, get everything he needed to in there. And I'm sure it'll look even better once they actually get set up to run as a store and whatnot. But it's really is a nice new location. So like I said, that was just Ryan, Scott Fox, and I. Bill was cheering us on, however, in the group chat all day. He was very active with that, telling us to take our shirts off and stuff like that.
I had my pom-poms out and everything. It was great.
Do all sorts of weird things to other people's models. It was pretty gross, actually. Anyhow, we had pretty much, I think, a fairly, I don't want to say normal spread of players. Certainly a lot of familiar faces, a lot of guys you'll see at GTs. A couple guys missing because, they're out of town or wasn't their event. They didn't have the weekend or whatever. We had a couple of new people who I actually hadn't met previously, but not a ton. But that's always nice when you can go, if you go to a lot of events, you tend to get to know people. And that's part of at least in my opinion, part of the charm of events. But you do still want to be meeting new people once in a while. And then, we had 3 games on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, your standard GT setup. Sean was running GW missions, GW terrain setups, which were all quite good. A couple of the missions that you don't get to play actually all that often, like supply drop. I know I hardly ever play supply drop. So when that came out is when I had to double check the rules, and it turned out I even still got them wrong. But it's a fun mission, just for what it's worth. And this time, because I'm going to jump over to Ryan, because obviously Bill doesn't have an army for this one. This time, Ryan had actually switched gears. So Ryan, why don't you talk us through what you took to the event?
I was debating Votan, but then reading the players pack, there was a lot of mention of the smallest piece of ruin, the smallest footprint, however you want to describe it, was not going to be obscuring. It was going to be just cover. And then realizing that a lot of these the terrain, I think usually there's a lot to complain about terrain all the time at all these events. Everyone's going to say terrain is not going to be good. But for this event, I thought it was excellent. A lot of it was interesting. The smallest ruin being not obscured, I was like, oh no, this is going to be rough. Just thinking about just how imagining all these lines that normally in your game are closed, and you're like, okay, I'm safe from here to here. From this point, and you're like, uh-oh, I'm not safe anymore. So that made me switch my mind, my list building mindset around, okay, my vehicles are not going to survive the same line of sight they would normally. It was an interesting twist on it. Yeah. And I wonder what can survive this buildings that I want to hide behind. I was like, well, Chaos Knights, they're a lot tougher. Yep. They have an invuln compared to all my Votan vehicles. And then the interesting thing that was always fun to do to your opponent, I explained every game because I knew it was going to happen in the game, there was two things. It was the battle shock stat changes when you play against Chaos Knights, because if you're under starting strength, so if you lose a model, you're a one model unit, you lose a wound, you're taking battle shock. I think every game it was probably a 4 or 5 times you say it, you're like, okay, battle shock on this, and it was like, explain it again. You're like, Chaos Knights do it differently, which some people when it first came out were like, oh, that's not going to play a factor into it. I think Arthur said that a couple times, but then it was hilarious watching the lion die to mortal wounds for failing his battle shock. It felt great, but it felt bad at the same time because he has a whole stick to protect himself from mortal wounds. But then the other aspect of Chaos Knight that was always fun was 1 CP, 2 War Dogs, or 1 Big Knight go right through models or terrain like it doesn't exist. And you go from hiding to 14 inches later, there's a carnivore sitting right next to your models that will just pick up a Space Marine unit, no problem. Between the tank shock and the slaughter claw. But it was also fun watching, because Votan don't have any indirect. So you have some dumb Farseer sitting on the home objective you can't touch. But then you play Chaos Knights and you have 9d6 of it.
Yeah.
And it's always fun hitting on 2s, going to 3s indirect. So it's always a great time. But
fun. It's not fun for your opponent, but that played a factor into a lot of the games. Was surprisingly the indirect only being straight, like it's only D6 blast, strength 5, no AP, 1 damage, but it's a lot though.
Against World Eaters, the 96 picked up 2 Jackal units. Yeah, like it put in work, a lot of work that you now don't have some pesky unit sitting in the back that you'll never see. With most armies that struggle with no indirect, you're like, good luck. These are free units sitting back here.
Chaos Knights, like, that is kind of one of the things that separates them a little bit in the meta, I think, is that because people don't think about it, they do actually have a ton of indirect, because every War Dog's going to be holding that Havoc launcher, which is not a oppressively strong weapon unto itself. But like you say, if you're running 9 War Dogs, that's at every shooting phase 9d6 shots, which don't have an amazing profile, but absolutely is more than enough to pick up all of those little units, all that little stuff that people put in their list to do actions, to hold objectives, to get in the way.
It's awesome.
A Chaos Knight list is going to pick that up. Same thing in like maybe some free roaming little characters that are soft targets, and that's kind of one of their kind of unique little tools in the tool bag.
I was even using it to try to pick off one wound on a vehicle that's hiding behind something, just to battle shock test it.
Yep.
Just to
Absolutely.
try to force it. Because you're like, it's sitting on its home objective, I can't touch it. Let's make it do battle shock, and then it's now not holding its home objective anymore.
Yep. Well, and
It's
you
like
can
an
do the
extra
same.
tool to proc it.
Well, or proc the mortals to get
Yeah.
a little extra damage on something, right? Which it makes a lot of sense. So, and I think like what Ryan's referring to here for regarding the terrain, like we said, he was running GW setups, but the smallest footprint basically. So kind of I think they're 6x4 pieces that you would see in a GW diagram of their terrain. Were not obscuring. They would block LOS like a normal, whatever the shape of the terrain was, but they otherwise weren't going to block any do obscuring LOS blocking. So that does like kind of flip the table from WCTC, enable some kind of shootier lists to have hopefully a little bit more success in that setting. And actually, to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure that they did over the course of the weekend, because we did have both melee and shooting lists have success.
Like the World Eater guy. World Eater guy
Mike
had 6 guns, and
I
think he finished 5th or 6th or something like that.
Yeah, he finished pretty high.
Oh,
I think he only had one bad match, and that was against you. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the thing, is that it is something you have to keep in mind, when you're planning your list. And that did, for like Votan, as Ryan had run them, are very shooty, no doubt. But at the same time, Chaos Knights are also very shooty. And I think the opening up of the terrain kind of made Ryan think, you know what, actually I do want to kind of run this, because of course Knights and War Dogs and stuff carry natural durability just because of their stat lines. A lot of Votan units, there are some tanky ones in there, but a lot of them don't hold up so well if they can't have somewhere to hide. And of course, the Votan army has a comparatively large footprint, because there's quite a few models on the table. And it turned out to, I think, honestly be a pretty good call. Brian, you had a pretty good run, right?
Yeah, it was. I played 4 Space Marines, because World Eaters are Space Marines. No one's thoughts. I'm building some right now, but
He was
I played Dark Angels, and then I played a Firestorm Assault, and then I went into World Eaters, and then I played Mike's Good Luck, I Have Tanks list, which I was very scared about. It was turn 1, first tank shot, killed a War Dog, and I was like, oh no. Second tank did it, and I was like, well, this is not going to go well. And then it kind of slowly stopped killing my things turn 1, and then the crackback happened, and Space Marines do not like AP5 Meltas. So the crackback happened, and I started picking up vehicles. I think I may have picked him up faster than he was killing me with them. And then that went well, and then I was sitting there watching my buddy play Eldar. Great guy. Josh, he ended up winning the event. But I could not. I was trying to hide it, hoping the Orc player that beat you was going to beat Eldar again, because I was looking at it, and I'm like, if I want a chance of winning this event, I need Orcs to win. Because into Eldar, Eldar's still a tough matchup. They've had nerfs.
Yeah, absolutely. But they probably could do with a few more.
Yeah. But it was I was hoping. The Orc guy ended up not taking the win, and I was like, this is going to be interesting. Watching the Avatar kill 3 War Dogs in Overwatch on 3 separate turns was painful to have happen.
That one's kind of, sometimes the dice just aren't with you,
Yeah. Well, it was the Overwatch, rolled a 2. Eldar re-rolled it. Farseer standing by, turned it into a 6. There's D3 extra shots. And I'm like, oh, and I can't roll an invul. And he's like, here's 18 damage. I'm like, well, that's dead. I was like, this is going to go downhill quick.
Some of the...
but
there are actually a couple places like the WCTC, WTC actually rules, that actually don't allow you to use fate dice on rerolls, specifically because of interactions like that.
I know, I wish. But I knew going into that match because I was tracking score, and sometimes I like to joke around that score is also another aspect of the game you can weaponize. And if you don't want to go into that first place matchup, maybe you grab third place, because sometimes events pair 1 and 2, 3 and 4. So sometimes you look at it and you're like, okay, first place is this, second place is this much. Maybe I don't score 99 on this and I score 97, but then some people start going, well, don't submarine. But looking into it, going into the last game, it was me against Eldar, and it was if I win it, it's going to be my second time winning Nemesis. And if I lose, I was looking at the terrible way to look at this score sheet was Eldar, Eldar, Eldar. I think it was Orcs.
Yeah.
Then Mike with his Space Marine, then me with my Chaos Knights, and I was like, well, I'm the top Chaos player, so at least I'm walking away with some trophy from this event. But it was terrible to watch Eldar just get called up 4 or 5 times in a row to pick up awards.
Yeah, Ryan's referring to the eventual final standings, which, as he says, unfortunately did result in a first, second, and third place finish for Eldar, who had an excellent weekend. I actually think I was going to say it kind of, to go back to kind of your matches and the discussion we had on terrain, it's interesting because I think that the terrain did play a little bit into how things went between you and Mike's armies, because both of you guys probably would have liked to hide more stuff, but the nature of that setup, which was also beneficial for you guys. So that's kind of the neat thing about it, is that both armies benefit from, there being a little bit less space to hide. But then that means that you guys really are, having the okay corral here, where, you guys naturally can't put all of these big boxy vehicles, or in your case, war dogs, everywhere you want to hide. And so, things can get pretty explosive pretty quick. And they did between you guys. I know.
Yeah, I was scared.
2 or 3 turns and you guys were doing massive amounts of damage. So
I think he was down to 3 of his 9 tanks, or however many tanks he had, and turn 3, and it was just like it could have went easily either direction with us just firing shot into shot.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. But our Ryan did end up having, ultimately you were only stopped in the final game where you were going in, first or second place, and so you did have a 4-1 run with your Chaos Knights, had a very successful weekend. Only stopped by, like you said, a little bit of unfortunate luck with some Eldar, who did have a very good weekend. I was one of those Eldar. I did a little Warhammer. I've been doing this thing where I've been trying to play with a lot of my friends' armies. So I decided to get out kind of mostly Arthur, but also a little bit of Tyson's Eldar, and I ran a list, basically a double avatar with Wraithguard list, which was a lot of fun. I actually barely got to practice with him before we went, but also it is a fairly straightforward list to play. Doesn't have a ton of units, doesn't have a whole lot going on that's particularly difficult to grasp. It's just mostly kind of getting used to the stratagems and the way you want to deploy and things like that. So I had a lot of fun. I hilariously was the opposite of Ryan. We had talked a little bit about it ahead of time, how basically a third of the people at the event were playing Space Marines. I didn't get to play one all weekend. I completely dodged all the Space Marine players. I played into Zach's Chaos Daemons. That was a very fun game, round 1. I played into Jason Fowler's Orcs, game 2. That was my loss. It was a 92-90 loss. We had an excellent game, very high scoring. That was a blast. Orcs are always kind of fun to play into. And then I played Hudson's Sisters. That was spectacular. Hudson's a great guy to play against at any time, but I'm a guy who loves playing against Sisters. I don't get to play against Sisters a ton anymore, but man, it was fun playing into them, especially now that they're kind of a little bit back into the game, I guess, from where they had been a couple of months ago. But they were doing a lot better. And that game was I was on my back feet for probably the first 3 turns. It was actually wild. I was like, holy crap, they're kicking my ass.
I think Arthur's in the comments already.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But we'll have a whole episode discussing how good sisters are another time, maybe. Then came back the next day. Who did I play first when we came back that morning? I was supposed to play. Jeez, I can't.
What army was it?
Yeah, which army was it? Somebody. Hold on here. We're gonna pull it up because it's kind of one of those things where you get the brain fog from 2-day events. Pairings for round 4. Who did I play? Oh, Maxime.
Oh yeah,
I played Max's Imperial Knights. That's funny because, of course, it's Max that I forget about. Now I feel bad, but yeah, I played Max's Imperial Knights. That game, that one kind of sucked actually. Max and I. Well, I love Max. He's spectacular to play against. But sometimes you get those games where like things kind of start to snowball, and then they just get wildly out of control for one player or the other. And it really doesn't matter what side you're on. It's not the best because, you know, everything's just going one guy's way. And that unfortunately what was happening in that one. I also think that the Knight versus Eldar, as you referenced, Ryan, I think Knights versus Eldar is a tough matchup sometimes. Not to say it's unbeatable by any stretch, but it can be difficult for the Knight players sometimes if you're not getting the dice in your favor, let's just say. And then finished it off with a game against Trevor's Necrons, which was also a blast. I get to play Necrons a lot, so I don't get to play against them very often, though. So that was a lot of fun, and it made for an awesome weekend. Like I said, I was a little annoyed that I didn't get to play any Space Marines, although I also was kind of happy that I got to play a bunch of kind of Xenos or unique armies that I don't normally see a ton of. So that was kind of cool. And yeah, I was happy with my weekend as well. I think I finished second-ish or somewhere around there. It was part of that Eldar problem at the very top of the roster. But we had a great time. The space, like I said, is spectacular. I also love that new location. Just on a personal note, it's it's very convenient for me to get to as a St. Albertan. He had a just great array of snacks available all weekend. The usual slew of raffle prizes and awards were top notch. That I think we talked about this a little bit, Ryan. That was probably the first time I've been to an event, just about anywhere, where the temperature issue was not heat but cold.
Oh, that was the only event I've ever regretted wearing shorts at.
Which was actually like, it's a good thing. It's hilarious. But like, I've been to plenty of events where it wasn't too hot, which is nice. But a lot of events do struggle with heat because you got a lot of people exerting in a usually not huge space, and it might get a little too warm.
Yeah, that AC was putting in work.
Yeah, that space is the opposite. It wasn't like it was too cold. It was just if you were right up against the front glass windows there that he's got, there was a little bit more of a breeze, and it wasn't like it was too cold, but it was certainly funny because we were talking about it. Like, I have never been to a place where I saw somebody act like they were chilly.
Put a sweater on.
You had your shorts on, and you were like,
well,
that was a bit much. Yeah,
I think it was my 4th game. I was like, I think I almost decided on the other side of the table because I was right under the vent, and I'm like, I'm not standing here for 3 hours. I was like, I'm gonna get cold. I was like, I want the other side of this table.
Yeah, it was funny. So that was kind of a neat thing because honestly, like, if you've ever TO'd a tournament, if you've ever run, if you've ever been in one of those spaces, you know that like it can genuinely be a thing that you have to worry about depending on your space and how many people are in it. Is how hot is it going to get in here, because it can be very uncomfortable. We're part of the reason we love the Fraternal Order of Eagles is because it's one of the better places for that. But even then in the summer, like, we got to open the doors and run the fans and stuff, right? So it's good to see we have another venue now that will also be the same, where hopefully ventilation and keeping things nice and cool won't be a problem, which was awesome. So overall, we had a great time. I know Josh, congrats to him, Josh Stapleton, who won with his, honestly, an Eldar list very similar to mine. He had a couple of tactical changes there and ran the gamut and won his 5 games and was able to take home the big prize. And he did great. I know that, we shit on the Eldar a lot, but we also do want to, be congratulatory towards folks. So we're very happy for him. And overall, I'd say we had an awesome weekend. And I know Scott Fox did too. Like I said, he wasn't able to join us for this, but he was running his Tyranids, and I think he went 3-2, if I remember right. He played several mirror matches.
Yeah, he was the top Tyranid there, top whatever bug you want to call it.
Awesome.
Head honcho there. He played every Tyranid player there, which I mean only was 3, so he ended up playing 2 of them at least. But
still,
it'd be awkward to play himself.
Yeah,
but he might. But, some people I know might lose to a game against themselves. It's hilarious when it happens. But
it's he got to be the Hive Tyrant though, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we had a great time. So it's been a busy month of Warhammer, and I know we're all kind of looking forward to a nice holiday break before we get right back at it in January. So yeah, that was kind of our wrap up for those 2 events. So I'm going to kick it over to Bill here, and he'll give you guys a little rundown for how things are going to go for the next month or so, and then we'll be signing off for the cast.
Yeah. Just while you're listening to this, we are all poised and ready to launch our Trident Social, which is going to be pretty sweet. It'll be popping off in a couple days. Definitely looking forward to that. It's just a way we can kind of get some community people involved and just kind of celebrate, the vast amount of gamers that we have the pleasure of dealing with.
Also, it's in about 10 days. Yep. December 9th.
Yep.
Still tickets available.
So it'll be.
I know. I got to send them money on payday. It costs too much this month. I keep buying files to print. I'm like, oh, what's another
That's fair.
Dreadnought or Tech Marine?
It's always the struggle. And yeah, just a big shout to all of our Trident supporters, especially our patrons. We've got Ed, Tyler, Chris, Dustin, and Frederick. We really appreciate the help, guys, and we couldn't be doing what we do without you. It helps us improve the overall quality. It helps us plan and just get things kind of in motion. So we very much appreciate the support. Everybody who's supporting like our social and our events. It's a great time. We do have some more stuff coming up for you in December. It's going to be kind of our wind down. We got a couple episodes planned where we'll pop off kind of our end of the year wrap up and kind of plans for the new year, and then shifting gears a little bit too, as we are going to be going to a 2 podcasts a month format, just to give a little bit slower. We've been pumping out an episode a week for the last, it'll be almost 3 years, and it's been great to do. But at the same time, we also want to focus on show quality, focus on having a lot of news, being able to pump it out, and maybe extending the episode length a little bit, which obviously is even better for you because you get to kind of listen to us chat about everything that we're doing a little bit longer. So that's kind of the
if we can call that a good thing.
Well, maybe sometimes.
Depends on what we're talking about, I guess.
That's true. That is true. So.
But I know we have a slower December, but I also know that whilst we also have a very exciting January coming up with both the Bad Ab League getting started up, and I know one other event which we'll be announcing I think right away, probably even by the time you guys are getting this episode, which is pretty exciting, I think. And then, of course, I know early February, I think we're doing our inaugural AOS event too.
Yeah.
So we're taking a little bit of well, we'll leave it. We'll let the announcement come out itself. But whilst we are taking a little break in December for the holiday, we certainly are not slowing down our content for the new year. So,
yeah, definitely stay tuned. As we move into year 4, it'd be awesome. So, and yeah, that's about it.
So thanks for joining us tonight, guys, for a little recap.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess we'll catch you all next time.
For sure. Good night.
Take care.
Did you plug the Patreon? We need to plug the Patreon.